let's begin with the potential. We have talked about it before, but now I have you gentlemen on the couches, and I want to elaborate a little bit. So, Mads Krogsgaard Thomsen, to start with you, Novo Nordisk Foundation has made quite a substantial donation to Gefion. What are your long-term ambitions for this supercomputer?
Well, first of all, during my more than 20 years as head of research and development at Novo Nordisk, I realized that we were constantly restricted in our ability to do what we called rational drug design based on computational power. We literally were not behind because nobody was ahead, but the realization that compute power and the parallel processing of massive amounts of data is now possible with a Gen AI computer like Gefion opens up so many alleys, not only within drug discovery and development, but also within, if you look at the foundation, we have human health as or the health of humans as one of our key themes. There's also elements of the amount of health data that exist in our society are unique. If we can get them all together and literally investigate all kinds of problems, it will open up for much more precise diagnosis and medication of people of the future. So, diabetes is not just diabetes, it can be differentiated. And that calls for computational powers that clearly reside within the realm of Gefion. And of course also that human health data are, you can actually look at them together, and that's something we need to work on in the society. Within sustainability of the planet or planetary health, there are many topics, but a kind of crazy one that we have funded recently is using ancient DNA analysis on plants that are up to 1 million years old and crops that are up to 12,000 years old. And you get all these many DNA fragments. And the reason why you do it is to say, how have plants and crops adapted to changing climate over the last thousands or even millions of years? And by using the natural evolution of plants and crops, you might be able to mimic that and have more resilient crops and plants of the future, despite increasing temperature, despite droughts and floods and whatnot. But analyzing these many DNA fragments and making sense out of them, comparing them to reference genomes and so on, can only be done in the context of big-time bioinformatics, and that's only possible via a computer like Gefion. So whether we look at these, and if I go to the life science ecosystem, which is the third area, then quantum computing is a big effort from the foundation side. If you want to develop an error or fault-tolerant quantum computer, the fault tolerance demands AI that can both detect and correct the errors that are happening in today's quantum computers, but also a lot of the software development calls for so many simulations, and these simulations can also only be done with an AI computer like Gefion. So when I look at not only the portfolio of activities within the realm of the Novo Nordisk Foundation, but within the realm of the whole Danish society, I see opportunities everywhere. As long as you have massive data amounts, and most scientists do, that need parallel processing in order to come up with a solution to your problem, then Gefion is a help to that solution. So I wouldn't mention one thing, I would just say this elevates the whole potential of the Danish scientific community, whether it's academia, clinicians, or companies.
And Peder Lundquist, you are also one of the owners of Gefion, but this is an investment for you in IFO. What do you hope to achieve with this investment?
Well, we hope to achieve the establishment of a company, DCAI, as you learned about today, where Gefion is the first product, so to say. So we hope that this investment will actually allow us to grow a company that will provide immense benefit for the broader society. Also a company that has a lot of impact with other areas. Mads just mentioned the interrelation between AI and quantum. Quantum is also a very important area of work for us. And if we can accelerate, let's say, AI penetration in our society, we thereby indirectly also improve the society's, let's say, readiness and potential for absorbing quantum when we arrive at that stage. That's a further benefit. So it's simply about growing a business that is benefiting the broader society in areas that are of extreme importance for us as let's say a state-owned but commercial company.
David Hogan, this is not the first supercomputer you have seen. You have seen computers like these around the world, not exactly like this, of course, but what are some of the innovations that we could take inspiration from when thinking about the potential of Gefion, do you think?
Well, it's kind of interesting. When I looked at the winners earlier, those are the sort of projects I would hope to see. So in essence, the question's already answered by some of those winners there. But I think you look after the potential of large language models, not just in terms of their ability to compute vast amounts of data and complex problems, but the ability to reflect the values and the culture of Denmark. I think that's really critical. Jensen talks about sort of sovereign compute and sovereign AI. Ultimately, AI is there to serve the country, to serve those people in the country who will engage with services and process, etc. And it needs to reflect the language and culture. And therefore, it's extremely important that there is a reflection of all the work we do of that Danish language and culture within that. So large language models is a huge opportunity to tune them and to develop even your own large language models to address that, to make sure that the AI used in this country is reflective of those values and cultures. We've talked a lot already about things like climate science, but it's amazing. NVIDIA has a project called Earth 2 where we're building a digital twin of the Earth, and just being able to predict weather events a few days or even a few weeks in advance is hugely impactful. And you saw one of the projects referenced earlier. That's really transformational in terms of safety, but also about how we think about the climate overall. And our ability to start to model long-term climate effects, was just referenced by Mads, is really transformational. So the opportunity to really transform how we think about climate science is incredibly powerful. And there is lots of opportunities, not just to develop things here, but also to collaborate with many people around the world who've got similar goals. And that's the opportunity that DCI has, is to collaborate with other centers around the world to maximize that opportunity. In terms of life science, I think everyone's mentioned life science, and there's a huge opportunity there, and I think that will continue to happen. And then finally, I think with quantum, the opportunity to develop quantum now through simulation, through the fault resolution, things like that, is an incredible opportunity to accelerate. So I think many of those key ingredients are already here.
Mikkel Flyverbom, your research evolves around digital transformation and how this can be done in a sustainable and also ethical way, you could say. What does it mean to have this kind of supercomputer based here in Denmark in terms of your research? What are the advantages of having this hardware in Danish hands?
I think we live at a moment in time where we're sort of realizing that we need to manage and master digital technologies and data and algorithms and AI in ways that align with the society that we've spent so many resources building and protecting, and so on and so forth. So in many ways, an investment like this brings AI closer to home, closer to the types of ambitions and problems we want to solve in a Danish context or European context, and I think this is the real sort of importance of this. And Jensen was talking earlier about infrastructure. I think the kind of conversations we need to have about digital transformations and digital technologies right now are really about aligning them and working with them in ways that we also do with other types of infrastructures. So think about the history in Europe and Denmark when it comes to building transportation, communication, water, all sorts of supplies and utilities that our society depends on a daily basis. For some reason, digital technologies have been exceptional in this domain. They have not been treated in the same manner. We have not had the same expectations about collaborations between the public and the private sector and some kind of democratic control over our infrastructure. So I think we really need these types of investments, and a computer itself, the instrument itself, is not really the end of it, because there are so many other things we need to solve in this area, such as access to data, ways of working or aligning technologies and society in better ways. So in many ways, we've lived through a period where the big technology companies that rolled out all these solutions didn't have a really great interest in society. And I think, hopefully, we're now stepping into a new sort of era where these things will be much more aligned, and we can have, many more demands about transparency, accountability, ethics, responsibility, and so on in the tech domain. So that's my hope.
Yeah, and we'll dive a little more into that a little later. But let's talk about how how you see this supercomputer transforming industries and how we can fully leverage its capabilities. Peder Lundquist, to kind of grasp these opportunities that Gefion provides, also in terms of creating a infrastructure in society, as Mikkel says, what mindset should Danish businesses, startups, larger businesses, what mindset should they use to engage with it?
I think they should be engaged with the mindset. I like the idea about, not only because it came from Jensen, but about viewing this as infrastructure and something that we provide for society that they can tap into. But when you have fundamental new infrastructure, you have to change your habits, the way you transport yourself from A to B. If there suddenly is a bridge, you don't need the boat. So you might sell the boat and start using the bridge. But maybe when it's a digital infrastructure, it might be a bit more difficult for you to understand that you should actually sell the boat and start using the bridge, because the bridge is 1,000 times faster and a lot more convenient. So this idea about embracing this as an opportunity, always perceiving this as a glass half full, not half empty, and really be curious about the opportunities that it provides. I think that would be my... Researchers are by nature curious. That's the entire business they do. They ask difficult questions and then they try to solve them. Businesses are often the opposite. They like an easy profit and a nice quarter result.
But you told me it's not just about maximizing. It's just not just about efficiency or turning up. It's about brand new ideas and new ways of thinking.
Exactly. To curiosity, brand new ideas, twisting it, a whole new way of approaching a problem, understanding your business, your activity, and I think that at least we hope that this kind of computing power that provides something entirely new to the understanding of many problems, that will actually result in as many people as possible starting to think in these kind of new and innovative ways, groundbreaking innovative ways.
But brand new mindsets is a challenge for people to think in new ways. David Hogan, based on your experience, what challenges do businesses often face when integrating supercomputing capabilities like those offered by Gefion?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's a very different technology than IT, than the cloud platforms that organizations are used to using today. So you need to really go back to first principles and determine what are you trying to achieve, what is the problem you're looking to solve, and then how do you then build a model to address that, taking advantage of this vast compute power that's suddenly available to you that's not normally there. So you have to think about how you're going to utilize that and how efficiently you can get your results, and then determine how do you measure those results, what is a good outcome, and how can you determine success, and how can you evolve over time, so have multiple success factors, and how you can reiterate that. Everyone assumes you sort of, you build a model, it's there, you deploy, it's all finished, that's great. The reality is you will continue to train, you continue to develop those models for greater efficiency and greater accuracy. So you need to have a long-term vision, and you should start with first principles about what is your long-term goal and how you're going to achieve it.
So,
Mads?
just a further added comment, there are two elements that many companies can forget if they are not reminded about it. One is that your data are typically spread in many different computers, servers, and whatnot. That doesn't really work here. You need to have a company's data all available in one searchable cloud-based system, because otherwise you don't get the benefit of the massive parallel processing of all these data. So make sure that your data system is searchable in a one point of entry manner, and also make sure that your people don't work in silos, because the problems you want to solve are multidisciplinary, and if you are too silo organized, you will not get the different disciplines to talk together in such a way as to either ask the right question and using the right technologies. Many companies still are organized in that way. You need to adapt your organization to a modern way of thinking in terms of interdisciplinarity.
Mikkel, the AI community in Denmark will have access to Gefion as well, and will probably learn a lot from this. How would you hope that Gefion can impact the AI community in Denmark?
So I think we're already seeing that many organizations and companies are starting to realize that it makes them vulnerable if they are dependent on other companies and other actors that are really not really aligned with their domain or the kind of values that they're driven by. So I think we'll see a growing kind of integration of AI and other types of digital technologies in companies that is focused on aligning values and new technologies in better ways. So, for instance, some of the work I do as a researcher is to help JP Politikens Hus develop recommender systems and a whole new set of AI technologies that help them distribute news to readers in ways that aligns much closely with their editorial policies and their kind of values as a company and a publishing house. So really making sure that the tools you use to distribute news, for instance, live up to a set of values that you have already developed. So this is, I think, the key point right now, making these types of alignments.
So this means that we can, in Denmark, become more independent, because you have at times been critical towards big tech and our dependence on big tech in Denmark. Do you think we can start building our own infrastructure, as you mentioned, with this capability?
Yeah, so I don't think I'm critical of technology as such, but I think we need to have a conversation about the kind of terms and conditions that we got digital solutions on so far. In many ways, many of the ways technologies were rolled out and the kind of business models involved and the commercial priorities didn't really take into account so many things that we actually all agree on. I think we all agree on the need to protect children, the need to protect our welfare state, our democracy, the rule of law. All these types of things, of course, need to be part of the equation when we engage with technology. It can't be a sort of balance between these two, because you need both if you want to exist as a society moving into the future. So I think we can start to build and engage in building alternatives and much sort of better ways of using technology. I think the people in the future will look back at us and ask, what did these people use their new superpowers for? Did they solve their problems, or did they create new problems? And right now, a lot of people are engaging in technology development that actually doesn't support our societies, democracies, children's well-being, and so on and so forth. So I think we need to keep in mind that history will judge us.
So on that note, Mads Krogsgaard Thomsen, now we're diving into the ethics question. AI has great potential in healthcare, as we've talked about already, but it also raises these questions about ethics, around particularly in areas like privacy, data privacy. How do you ensure that AI-driven innovations on Gefion are beneficial, are ethical?
So I think there are several elements to that. One of them is, of course, regulation, and we have in the EU a lot of regulation, including GDPR, the need for de-identification of data so that it cannot be personhenførbart related to a specific individual. There are rules about data sovereignty. Data cannot travel across borders. So a lot of that, I would argue, is in place. When that is said, it's also important that you, in terms of ethics, the more you can search all data. So let's pretend all Danish health data were searchable in one shape and form with one point of entry. Then it's important that those people who sit and control that, i.e. you send an application, you get a response within a month or two or whatever, hopefully not too long, that there are the right lawyers, there are the right people sitting there making sure that ethics is okay. Just like if you do a clinical trial, you apply to an ethics committee, Central Videnskabsetisk Komité. You apply to an ethics committee for the permission to do that trial. The same should go here. And have that in one central place so that the same quality control across the country and not in many different places. That's a piece of advice for, I would in this case argue, the Ministry of Health. Then I would also say that when it comes to you as a person using AI, you need to train yourself in doing it in the ethical way. And if you're creating apps or chat GPTs or whatever, you of course need to make sure that they're not built in biases into the way you create the model.
And Peder Lundquist, when businesses interact like this and have to be aware, as Mads said, about biases and so much more, how should businesses work with institutions like Gefion to ensure that their AI innovations follow ethical standards like these?
They should, I think, as Mikkel said, they should behave and have a moral compass that is suitable for doing business in Denmark. Gefion is a Danish company. And it's here for a reason. It's for many reasons, but one of it is that it is anchored in our regulation and in our society, in our understanding of our society. So of course, we honestly don't foresee any problems, I guess, in that in that aspect. We think it will run smoothly, and we will get many good projects as the 6 we just saw here on the screen, which seems for my standards completely straightforward and extremely useful, and no alarms ringing on my behalf. But of course, there might be some situations where you run into some, let's say, interpretations or something else. But there you have general regulation to solve that in Denmark and in Europe. And generally, I think the regulatory regime in Denmark works well and sufficiently. And I think. In some areas, like say in the health sector, you have very, very exhaustive regulations governing it. So I would say, maybe I'm not imaginative enough here. I said people should be imaginative, and I'm just being a bit boring. But at the moment, I'm quite optimistic.
So time is running, and we want to look a little bit towards the future and your vision for the long-term impact of Gefion. And David, with your expertise from NVIDIA, how can Gefion remain adaptable? How can Gefion remain relevant as AI technologies evolve over the next decade?
Yeah, so AI is not standing still. It's moving every single day. You just need to see the numerous papers published. But one of the key things of how we've built Gefion is that it will constantly get updated with the latest software. So NVIDIA is constantly evaluating, providing new software aimed at different industries, different use cases, that's constantly updated and adaptable. So the users of Gefion can always be assured that they're on the latest software. And that not only just enables the use cases, but it also improves the acceleration and the performance of the GPUs themselves. So we've improved the performance of H100 over 27% in the last 12 months just through software. So this always means that you're going to be on the bleeding edge of technology in terms of what you can do. And in terms of next generations of technologies which do evolve, is that this is a modular construction, which means you can add the next generation to Gefion or build incremental compute clusters which will enable the sensor to provide the bleeding edge of technology. So I don't think there's a point in time where you're stuck. I think there's an opportunity to constantly evolve and be at the forefront of technology.
Mm-hmm. And Mads Krogsgaard Thomsen, what does success look like for Gefion in 5 or even 10 years in your eyes?
Well, I think within healthcare, we have come to understand disease biology better. So we found new points of either preventing or intervening in the disease processes. In terms of drug development, we've accelerated that and made it more certain in terms of clinical trial selection and so on. And in terms of treatment of human diseases, we have not only developed the right AIs and applications, we also have democratized the use of these and trained healthcare workers so that whether you're in the western part of Jutland or in the Rigshospitalet, you can get the same kind of diagnostic principles implemented. Within terms of sustainability, I would hope that we have leveraged some of these big data to create a more sustainable agri-food system. And within the life science ecosystem, I would suggest that 10 years from now, the AI application to the quantum efforts ongoing in the Copenhagen area have resulted in one of the world's first fault-tolerant quantum computers.
That sounds like a nice future. Okay, great. And Peder Lundquist, the same question to you. What does success look like for you and IFO in 5-10 years?
I can subscribe to Mads' formula to put it. I think that would, if we would achieve that, and for example, paving the way for fault-tolerant quantum computer, that would be marvelous. And I think we are in the business, so is the Novo Nordisk Foundation, but for building the ecosystem, having some kind of community in terms of research, business, everything around that, different smaller companies, larger companies, growth companies, more established companies, this kind of thinking it as an ecosystem where you simply have a vibrant environment here in our city and in our country. I think for us that would be also part of the fulfillment of the ambition that Gefion would play a very important integral part in such a development. Mm-hmm.
And Mikkel Flyverbom, now you're sitting here with the owners of Gefion. What advice do you have to them on how to ensure the best possible impact for Gefion?
Well, I hope that you will be part of something that people look back at and say these people really invested their money and their work and their brains in something that created a better society. So think about, I mean, in many ways, today's launch reminded me of the launch of other types of technologies. You could think about the printing press or the iPhone, moments where you see a new piece of technology that certainly can do something differently, but you have no real idea about the kind of ripples it's going to create. The printing press created most parts of what we think of as democracies with science and political participation. The smartphone created a lot of amazing access to information, but also other ripples in the water that we maybe didn't want or didn't expect. So I hope that we will use this opportunity to make something like AI and a supercomputer into something that creates the best possible ripples in the water for ourselves and for our future.
That was all the time we had. Thank you to all of you panelists for your insights. It's very clear. I think that Gefion will have this unique opportunity to shape the AI future here in Denmark, and I look forward to seeing that future. It sounds really exciting.